Hello, welcome back to CinemaBurger. I'm Scott Berger, and I bring you movie reviews from a different perspective. Today we continue our viewer choice movies with the number one choice for sci-fi with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Released in 1989, it's about Rick Moranis, who plays Wayne Zelinsky, an inventor who is trying to perfect a shrink ray, and it ends up shrinking his kids and the neighbor's kids as well. Now their kids, Amy and Nick, are kind of home alone a lot by themselves because their parents both work, which was very common in the 80s, like known as the latchkey kids. So they're kind of left to their own devices. Like the parents come home later on, but the daughter is about to go to college, and the son is very scientific, just like his dad. So the next door neighbors are the complete opposite. They're very sports oriented. The neighbors' kids are Russ and Ron. So Wayne Zelinsky is trying to get the shrink ray to work, but all it does is blow up items instead of shrinking them. And he's trying to have a big presentation ready to like the science patent or something. Now while he's out doing this, the neighbors accidentally hit a baseball through the window and it hits the shrink ray, which is in the attic. Now it hits a bunch of wires and stuff, and it actually shrinks something for real this time. So it shrinks everything in the immediate vicinity, and then the kids go to see what happened because they hear glass breaking. Now this movie is very science oriented, which is good, and the kids go upstairs to see what happened and they get shrunk by the machine. And the neighbor's kids go upstairs to get the ball and they also get shrunk. So all four of the kids are now a quarter of an inch tall. Now upstairs is a wood floor, and the detail of the sets are great because you see in between the wood pieces of the floor. Now before, a couch and a chair were shrunk down, so those are the same size as the kids, and they finally realize what happened, that they're shrunk now. So I really like the detail of the sets because it's a lot of practical effects and design instead of just CG effects. Now CG wasn't that big in the late 80s yet, but they've used it in other movies. But you really believe that everything around them is real because it's a real set. Now they see the family dog, and it's really loud because it's a lot bigger now, and there's also like bugs and stuff because the window's open. And they end up getting taken outside and dropped in the grass. So now they're on the lawn of the house, which to them being so tiny, it's like 10 miles long. So now here's like the real danger. So now we're in the grass. They have to figure out how to get back to the house and tell their dad that they're tiny. Now, these kids get put in danger to various things. There's giant bugs and fires caused by cigarettes thrown in the grass and things like that. What I miss about 80s and early 90s movies made for kids is that movies were able to put children in mortal danger in a family-friendly setting, and I miss that because kids' movies now, even if they're like action-adventure movies, you know they're never actually going to be hurt, but there are many scenes of this movie where they look like they're going to die, and this movie's made for children. And movies now just don't take those chances, and it's a shame. But the detail on everything tiny and everything put to scale is just great because nothing nowadays does that without using CG, and it's very noticeable. At one point they see ants, and one of them is a baby, and it kind of befriends them because they find a cookie in the grass and they give it food, and it kind of comes along with them. Now later on there's a scorpion that is attacking, and the ant fends off the scorpion from the kids, and this is a really like disturbing scene, but in a good way because it's dark and you really think that they're gonna die. The scorpions may have to be a monster, and it's all like stop motion effects, and it is, it's not real by today's standards, but you see it's a real item there, like a real thing. Now, at one point there's a sprinkler that goes on, and it starts to water starts to fall on them and they're almost drowned in like mud, and it just shows like what tiny creatures really go through from day-to-day life and the scale of things in the world. At one point, the kids end up sleeping in a giant Lego that's standing sideways, so the little holes are makeshift beds for all the kids, which is, once again, pretty cool. There's another scene of a kid about to mow the lawn there, and the lawnmower sounds like a giant monster, and the kids almost get sucked up into the blades of the lawnmower, and it's gruesome, but, this is for kids. But you never get a sense that they're definitely going to be okay. Like today's kids' movies, you like, are they going to live? Are they going to die? You don't know. But it creates a sense of peril that an action adventure / sci-fi movie needs. So eventually the parents start looking for them, and instead of stepping on the lawn, they develop this spinning thing that they can hang on like a hammock and spin around and use a magnifying glass. That way they're not actually stepping on the lawn to accidentally step on the kids. And they, after looking for like a day or so, the dog sees them because they are near it, and the dog ends up bringing them in the house, and the son ends up in a table and a bowl of Cheerios that the dad's eating. And once again, it's a real set. The kid's in a pool, and they have giant Cheerios made for scale, and the dad gets very close to eating the son, but they finally see them and figure out what happened, so they fix all the kids and make them the right size. So now at the end, also, they've practiced growing things with the ray, and you see like a giant turkey and other food at Thanksgiving. So now this leads me to think, is Wayne Szalinski gonna use this to help solve world hunger and things like that, or just gonna keep it for himself? That brings up very ideological questions. But overall, this movie was ahead of its time. It was a tribute to just how well sets are instead of CG, which would later become more dominant in movies today, especially with science fiction. Now there would be 2 more sequels, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, and then Honey, I Shrunk Ourselves. And Rick Moranis was in both, but after a while he retired from acting. But Disney Plus is developing a new reboot series called Shrunk, where I believe Rick Moranis will be starring as well. Now, overall, I give Honey, I Shrunk the Kids a 4 out of 5 burgers because of how much care is taken into showing how tiny people would react in what is considered to them a large world. The sets are real, the stop motion for the bugs is great, and you really know that they're there because it's not all green screen. Actually, it's probably very little green screen. But movies need to take this kind of care into doing things, again, instead of just resorting to CG. So we only have one more movie left in the viewer choice series, and that's the #1 horror. But we'll find out what that is next time. I'm Scott Berger, and I'll see you next time.